Well, in the run-up to the war, US President Donald Trump repeatedly downplayed the potential economic fallout of a conflict with Iran, calling disruptions to the energy market as a short-term concern. But the bigger concern is world peace. But as fighting has escalated, many of those risks quickly translated into real-world consequences. Before the war began, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of the Staff, General Dan Kane, had actually come out to warn the US president that Iran could try to shut the Strait of Hormuz using mines and drones and missiles because it has the upper hand. Now, it has done it before as well. But US officials had long assessed that Tehran had the capability to choke the vital shipping corridor, a very strategic point. But President Trump acknowledged the risk and still moved ahead with the military operation, believing that Iran would likely capitulate, and even if it didn't, the US military would manage the threat. However, the situation has drastically changed on ground in the last 15 days. The impact that the world is now reeling because when it comes to the oil supply that has been affected. The 10 MMPD of oil supply that has been disrupted. We'll take you through as far as multiple risks that the world is now also getting to know, because this is a very strategic move on part of Iran, which has now, it has done before, but recently, when it comes to oil refineries as well, in particular the Gulf regions, energy infrastructure, Iran has also been making them a target. So, as far as the impact is now concerned, well, the risk and the impact, we are already looking at already happening when it comes to the amount and the price of per barrel, the amount that has almost touched 120 US dollars. And when it comes to the risk of shipping lanes in Persian Gulf at risk, well, Khamenei Jr. has already announced in that written statement that the Strait of Hormuz will not be opened. Now, also saying that the global prices could spike already, as far as I said, the prices have been skyrocketing, rather have been oscillating between $100 to 120 as far as the recent, the markets that have been suggesting. The Brent crude that has now jumped. And another risk that the war could also trigger economic shock, where global markets, and this has been effective immediately because the markets that run on sentiments and statements right from Asia to world over, the markets have been witnessing a bloodbath. So let's go back to Srinjoy on this. Multiple risks there, biggest one for all, Srinjoy, for the United States, but the world has been feeling the impact.
Yes, the economies of all countries have suffered because high oil prices means difficulties for economic growth, and you've seen the markets bloodbath everywhere. India has suffered, especially countries that are oil dependent, that are dependent on imports of oil. India, China, Japan, Korea, a lot of countries depend on oil. Many of the countries in Europe also depend on oil. And as a result, this is going to hurt many, many countries in the world. Now, as long as the war lasts, and we don't know how it will end, in what way it will end, but if there is a problem with petroleum, if the market is down in terms of the stock exchanges, then clearly economic growth is going to hurt, and this has severe long-term effects, at least particularly if the war goes on longer and longer. We've just had two weeks of fighting. Already we see the repercussions. What if this fighting goes on for another 2 months? I'm just saying, this could lead to serious problems as far as this war is concerned. 14 days, and we have the problems that we have. So things could get worse, and let's hope the fighting ends soon and normalcy prevails.
Yes, because to that, fighting ending soon, there have been hints that have been given, but there have been also statements, Srinjoy, that has been coming in that both sides are ready for a prolonged war. And that is not good for any country there, because in a way, indirectly as well, they are being dragged into this war.
Yes, of course. Of course, that is so. Look at India. India has 9 million people there. India looks for remittances from there, $50 billion a year. India also gets petroleum from there. So India's economy is dependent on what is happening in the Gulf, at least to an extent. So naturally, India is an affected party. So is China. So are many other countries. So as a result, this is something that most countries will worry about.